Well, Senator John Prose is supporting measures that would honor our country by establishing Freedom Week in Michigan and also ensuring K-12 schools focus their social studies teaching on America's founding ideals. Senator Prose joins us this morning now to talk more about those bills. Senator, good morning to you. So what spurred you to co-sponsor these bills?
Well, I think co-sponsoring these bills is talking about some of the very strong ideals that we have in the United States of America. The United States of America that just celebrated our birthday just a few days ago. Many of us celebrated that birthday, whether it be parades locally or backyard barbecues. But the fact is that our founding fathers did an amazing job back in those days that were really quite dangerous and very challenging. It's important for us to remember what our past was so that we make sure that our kids carry on those traditions of great value that so many have fought and died for in our nation. And then, of course, the Freedom Week talks about what happened in 9/11 and making sure that we think about our Constitution and what happened in 9/11 as a part of those two things coming together. Not only was it a tragic situation, but it was a tragic situation because the United States of America remains a beacon of freedom throughout the world. And if you look at what's happening in Egypt today, our own nation is a beacon of freedom to a nation like Egypt who is trying to find a democratic path towards their own freedoms also. I just think it's important that our school students, our kids, remember that those are the most important things that make us uniquely American.
Do you feel then that there's a lack in our school system to be educating our children about these types of issues?
I don't think it's a lack. I think this adds an exclamation point to it. I think it adds an exclamation point for social studies and social studies teaching in our school districts, and in particular working with our school boards so that the school boards work with curriculum directors who then work with teachers to make sure that our United States Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, those great American documents, and our own Michigan Constitution are talked about as those founding documents that make us so uniquely American. That freedom, that the Revolutionary War, our own. My wife and I watched Lincoln last night. I mean, if you can't think proudly of our great nation with the 13th Amendment and the passage of the 13th Amendment under Lincoln's reign as President of the United States of America, our 16th President. These are just, I think, very, very important parts of what makes us American, and important for us to think about those freedoms. This past week is a perfect example of that. We all took time to be with our families and have barbecues and go to parades. But let's remember all those men and women who fought and died for those freedoms that we enjoy today.
And speaking of our forefathers, you had mentioned before that we owe this to them to be teaching our students in school everything that they've done.
Absolutely. And certainly there are important things that we do every day to make sure that we make the curriculum work. But the curriculum works because we have the freedom to allow the curriculum to work. Well, let's remember those documents, those great documents of the Declaration of Independence, the Revolutionary War that gave us that declaration, and then the opportunity for us to look at our Constitution as the basis for our rule of law.
Now, this also plays into teaching kids how our government works. Do you find that many adults just are lacking in that area as well?
You know, you think of the Jay Leno or any one of the other man on the street, so to speak. How many people can't even mention that Joe Biden is our Vice President of the United States? Some who don't even know that President Obama is our president. It's important for us to have a basis of knowledge of what our great nation is about. And that means some of today's current political situation, whether a Republican or a Democrat, makes no difference. The fact is we're all under that American flag of freedom. And I think that these documents, and remembering our Freedom Week, remembering the sacrifices that others have made, not just during veterans events, but all the time in our curriculum, I think is important. And then, of course, during Freedom Week, that week starting September 11th through the 17th. I just think this is smart to put an exclamation point on what is so great about our American patriotism, our American freedoms that are not free. They're hard fought for, and in many cases people have died for.
Absolutely. Was there any opposition at all to this? I can't imagine. But
well, it's in committee right now. The Senate Education Committee will be taking up these bills, I hope, this fall so that we can have a good debate about it. You know, we don't want to put extra burden on our school districts, but what we certainly want to do is make sure that we put an exclamation point on what is so uniquely American and that great democratic process that we have here in the United States of America that allows for us to debate and discuss and disagree, but to do so without revolution, and to do so without fighting and bloodshed in the streets. We watch what's happening in Egypt. I think that's a perfect example of how difficult it is to come to a place where the United States is today, which is a rule of law based upon the Declaration of Independence that started that process toward our United States Constitution.
And of course, parents too should be involved with educating their children about this. It starts at the home,
The
not
first
just in the school.
and best parents are always those that are at home. I mean, our parents are the first and best teachers. I certainly try to do the same with my 11 and 10 and 6-year-old kids. And of course, weeks like this, not just having a barbecue and throwing the baseball around,
right,
but making sure that you remember why it is that we stop and pause to say Happy Birthday, America.
And you know, you made a great example of how to make history fun for kids by showing them movies, you know, Lincoln.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, it was just my wife and I last night that watched that, but
there are some scenes that's
a little intense, little intense, but I think that it is very important, age appropriate, that we teach our kids those unbelievably American fundamental values that make us so great.
Senator Prose, thank you for joining us this morning.
Appreciate it.